The SEC coaches have spoken, and per the usual, down in Destin for the coaches meeting, they provide some nice quotes about each team in the SEC. And what makes it even better, they were able to speak their mind because they're all anonymous. And so they kind of confirmed some things for your boy about Oklahoma. And I'm going to tell you about where I think they missed the mark with some of the comments about the Sooners. So let's dive into that. Before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thank you for pulling up to the channel. I know it's been a bit. Haven't really dropped any videos this week. Had some things happening. We'll talk about it on the live on Sunday, so make sure y'all pull up. We've got a lot of things to cover over the last few days, but this one in particular lines up right with what I want to talk to you all about especially when I dropped my video about John Mateer being a Heisman candidate and why I feel like he can do it. Well, here is the simple answer behind this. These coaches missed one key thing that hurt Oklahoma last year that will be much improved this year. Let's dive into it. First and foremost, here's some of the quotes. Me and John talked about it over on Locked on Sooners a couple of days ago. Fantastic. You know, John always does a great job grabbing these and pointing out some of the misses, but as I thought more and more about this, I realized where some of these coaches were missing their point when it comes to Oklahoma Sooners going into next year. Here's two quotes around John Mateer, and I'll explain where they miss out. It's a hot seat situation for sure. They're banking on an instant impact from Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer, the way Vanderbilt brought in New Mexico State coach QB combo. That could happen. Their receivers were non-existent last year, but a lot of that was injury. They should bounce back and give Mateer some options. Very fair statement. The next thing it's a huge gamble that Mateer can come in and immediately acclimate to playing against the defenses in this league. We'll see if he can do it because that's what will determine this staff's future. All right. There's two things behind that. Two things that amazes me in regards to this. Two things. First and foremost, they're 100% right on the wide receiver situation. But the one thing that we've learned about college football is that you can throw together a group of wide receivers who have some experience, smorgasbord them together, and have a great year. Wide receiver is probably the one position where you can plug and play somebody and it doesn't really affect much. The difference is you can't do that with youth. You got to have some guys that are experienced and savvy and understand how to play wide receiver. So I totally see that. And that's a good point of, because of those injuries, there will be a bounce back. Now, in that first quote, this is the one thing they did forget. And this is why I want to make this video, because I actually was preparing a video for you all to talk about this. Offensive line play was probably the biggest problem for Oklahoma. And the reason why it was the biggest problem is because you're playing a whole bunch of young dudes. So, similarly to wide receiver, if you're dealing with a bunch of injuries, you're dealing with a lot of people that are young. If you have a bunch of young players out there, they're probably not going to produce the way that you would like. Well, here we go. Oklahoma had the same problem, but not going into this year. This year, this will be one of the more experienced lines Oklahoma's had in the last few years, probably closer to that 2023 line that they had in experience and play, which that team went 10-3. Now, can that translate to the SEC? At the end of the season, we started to see some work, start to see some things happen, and now you got a quarterback who's not afraid to throw it. It'll look much better. Here's the numbers. Let's take a look at it. Oklahoma is returning 3,200 snaps this year. Nowhere near that last year. Adding in an additional 2,000 snaps in the veterans of Derek Simmons, as well as Luke Baklinko and Jake Michla. Now, remember, this is only from last season. This is not career stats. This is just from the prior season. What helps Oklahoma most is Heath Luzada didn't play a lot. Vici Ewu played a fair amount at North Texas, became a freshman All-American, conference All-American. From that, he was acclimating to Bill Beatonbow in the SEC, but he played most of your snaps. He played all 13 games. Was he perfect? No. His grades, 59, 72 in pass, so he did well in that. It was okay in the run. But the thing was, he was young. Redshirt sophomore, learning at a new conference. So you got some improvement that should come from there, similar to what you got out of McCade Mattower. Everybody was kind of bagging on him when he first got to Oklahoma. Then the next year, you're like, oh, nah, I think he'll be all right. Now he's with the Chiefs kind of, trying to work his way on the roster. Heath Ozada's young. Logan Howland, redshirt freshman. Troy Everett comes back from injury after a meh first year. Probably one of your more consistent linemen when he got back from injury from the spring. Looked really good. Center was actually holding it down. Jacob Sexton. Not sure if y'all recall this, but tore his ACL 2022 against Florida State, within the first drive as a true freshman. Missed most of the next year, played a little bit at the end in 23. And then he came in 24 and was up and down. Well, here you go. Jake Taylor, young. He only made it 4 games before he got hurt. Eddie Pierre-Louis was a true freshman. Kept his red shirt preserved. Same thing with Isaiah Trident and Daniel Akinkumi. So you lost 1,300 snaps, though. Tarquin played around a lot of places. Spencer Brown. And Bates transfers out. Hickman ran out of eligibility, which kind of shocked me. And you bring in a transfer in Gary Hatchett, who was a veteran, but he only lasts 1 game before he gets hurt. So you deal with a lot of injuries here, but a lot of youth. All these dudes are young. Red shirt sophomores and down. It's all you had on the line. Well, now they got it out there, and they realize what they need to do. I trust Bill Beatonbow. This line's going to be a heck of a lot better in comparison. That's my thoughts on the line portion of it. These numbers, to me, tell me there's a lot that's going to be improved in comparison to last year. But then you bring in a Derek Simmons who will need to prove himself, but he put up a lot of snaps. Same thing with Luke Buklinko from Stanford, as well as Jake Michael. That's additional veterans to where if your starters have issues, you got veterans you can slide in. We didn't have that last year. We got that this year. You've got at least a 2 deep, and that's not even including Ryan Fogier and Michael Fasusi. So that's, to me, the one spot where that quote misses the mark of what this will look like, because bringing in veterans. Let me know what you think. Hop in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. To me, the offensive line being better will change the game for Oklahoma. Now, the next thing, the last quote here, huge gamble that Mateer can come in and immediately acclimate to playing against the defenses in this league. We'll see if he can do it, because that's what will determine the staff's future. Now, there was another quote in here that talks about Brent Venables becoming the play caller. It's usually, not a good thing, while at the same time, hopefully it could be successful. He was one of the best ones to do it back in the day. Whatevs. Well, this quote about Mateer and acclimating to this league's defenses is that the one thing they forgot is Mateer is acclimating to his current defense today. Oklahoma was top 10 in the country in defensive efficiency, and they gave SEC teams hell with their defense. You lose 2 big pieces in Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman, but the experience around that, and then adding 2 players like a Marvin Jones Jr. and a Kendall Daniels, defense is terrorizing. Now, and the good thing I heard in reports from practice is there'd be days that the defensive line would dominate. There'd be days the offensive line would dominate. So you see people iron sharpening iron. Well, Mateer was out there not only cooking the defense, but he was also doing turnovers. So he was understanding and learning. But we got to remember, he has one of the best defensive minds in the country teaching him how to prepare himself for the SEC. Remember, those defenses that Brent Venables had in the ACC, in which everyone considers to be, quote unquote inferior, beat up on some national championships teams out of the SEC, namely Alabama. And they cooked up Oklahoma too in the Big 12. But that's not the point. My point is, Mateer's going to be just fine in the SEC. If you listened to me last year, I explained it. I hoped that Jackson Arnold would have been, forged in fire. It didn't work out that way. Mainly not really truly fully his fault. More so that everything around him fell apart all at once. Not only from play calling to the offensive line, dealing with injuries, to the wide receiver room dealing with injuries. So he had everything fall apart at once. Well, as long as that doesn't happen again, knock on wood, Oklahoma should be just fine with John Mateer at third quarterback. So I like the quotes. I think it's fascinating that everyone's comparing Oklahoma to Vanderbilt's situation, which is really good because Diego Pavia walked in there and they won 6 games. They went to a bowl game with that dude out there, and he's a baller. You can tell that he's a dude that has that moxie that everybody loves. He gives a bleep about winning games for Vanderbilt, and he did it. You don't think John Mateer can do it? I bet you he can. He's cooking up Washington up there at Washington State. Beat Texas Tech. Better weapons and a really good defense to lean on too. I expect it. Let me know what y'all think. Hop in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. This is why I'm so bullish on John Mateer. Plus, he's been flying up everybody's charts. I mean, the dudes our quarterback room, Oklahoma's quarterback room, is considered tier 1 by those reporting at ESPN. Just saying. Made this far, like the content, hit the like button, new to the channel, subscribe. Love y'all to join this family sooner. Fans talking OU football, SEC, college football in general. Have a blast doing it. We will break down returning production. That video will probably drop later today. And then we also got to talk about the quarterback recruiting situation that has taken a massive turn going into June. I'll explain that in another video as well. So make sure you hit that bell notification and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the content. We will chop it up later on today. Peace.